Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day, good that time just after school when you get home and you have a little nap and then you wake up and you're like, is it 7 p.m.? Is it 7 a.m.? Good one of those. And welcome to On a Roll. If you can hear us, if you can see us, then that's all good. You might notice something different about today's show. And it's not Ben and Declan on a roll, but it is Ben and Paul on a roll. Paul is one of my oldest friends. You might know him as Randir from Homebrew, I was going to say Randir from Homebrew Quest,
Homebrew.
Homebrew Quest, or you might know him as Paul from Hear Us Out, alongside his usual co-host there, Patrick. Or you might just know him from the world and about. Thank you so much for joining us and watching along. Now, we have a chock-a-block show tonight. We're going to do a double feature, two topics for the price of one, for a couple of reasons. To give you a little inside baseball, I suppose. The initial plan for June is that myself and Paul would do two shows, but Muggins here screwed it up. I'm actually away for the next On a Roll, so there won't be a second On a Roll in June. So we're cramming the two things we wanted to talk about into one blockbuster episode.
Yeah, decided to really make it difficult for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Those things are, to give you a little agenda for today's show, I'm going to chat to Paul just a little bit, help introduce audiences who might be new to Paul, so you know him, you know his experience, you know where he's from, you get why I'm very excited to chat to him. And then we're going to get into kind of topic one. Topic one is using tabletop role-playing games, and in this case, we'll use kind of D&D as the example, to sort of like table tests, to try out, to bounce ideas. If you are a screenwriter, if you're an author, if you're a creator of any other kind, you have like a plot or you have dialogue or you have a character and you just want to like road test them a little bit, how a group of your friends in a very safe and comfortable space is a good way to give that some testing in a safe space. So you can test out your dialogue, see how it feels. You can bring it to the table. Or the other way around, if you're not really sure how to write a scene, seeing how people naturally improv it around you will give you natural dialogue in that situation. And then we're going to play through an example. I have prepared a D&D like encounter, I suppose, for Paul. Paul doesn't know what it is. He barely knows who he's playing. But I've chosen a famous movie scene, D&Dified it, and we're going to road test it. Paul might figure it out very quickly. I'm not the smartest when it comes to being subtle, but to show you the different ways in which a new element, a new creative mind could take something in a totally different direction. I'm half expecting 5 seconds in, we're not going to play the same scene as in the movie. And then after all that, we're going to chat about, I'm going to chat to Paul about Hear Us Out, how he techs Hear Us Out, how he teched for Homebrew when we were doing Homebrew Quest Live, lessons we've learned being on both Twitch and YouTube, and little tips and tricks that as a stream producer, Paul has picked up and he wants to share with everyone watching, either live today or on the VODs over on the Homebrew Quest channel. That's stacked agenda. So
Yeah.
without further ado, I think we bring the energy and pace down to a more casual fireside kind of vibe. And I just want to say hi, Paul.
Hey,
How are
how's
you?
it going?
Good. How are you keeping?
Not too bad. Which is I really enjoy watching On a Roll with you and Declan. I think it's a really good idea for a show to kind of take topics and turn it into kind of a chat show kind of element. Um, while like Homebrew Quest and D8 Dungeon kind of do their own campaigns and stuff, I do think that this is a good platform to be able to kind of bring topics and stuff. I've liked some of your topics, like what to do. The DM topics are really good because I think that's the scariest chair at a D&D table, kind of thing. So I do think that it's really good. And I know that the original kind of I guess goal of Homebrew Quest was kind of bringing in new players a lot. So it's kind of good to kind
Mm-hmm.
of see that it's still evolving and kind of what you say still being a main topic, I guess, for you as well. So
Yeah, true. Because for myself and Declan's been DMing a far longer time than I have, for sure. I started DMing like regularly with Homebrew Quest, but we share similar uh, beliefs of what a table should be and what the goal of the game is. And I do find it a lot of fun. One, it's way easier to do this show than it is to DM. Way less prep, way less like curveballs, way less everything else. So it's nice to be able to continue streaming, but without the pressures that we put on ourselves for Homebrew, which was every second Tuesday for um, full campaign of content. And look, I'm aware as I'm saying that there are DMs out there who either like are pay to play or stream all the time, stream weekly, and like my big wizard DME hat is off to them, because even fortnightly was like, whew, this is a fair whack of work. So I'm glad that people are enjoying it. I don't think we cover topics that are altogether entirely new as discussions, but as new people to those topics, we hopefully bring new insights and little nuggets that people can take from it.
Like, yeah, I do find it also refreshing those topics, although they're not new. I think refreshing those topics is always a good thing to do as well, because like I know people can go to like Matt Mercer's kind of like, DM kind of training kind of videos that he has on YouTube and stuff like that. But it's always nice to get, yeah, as you say, get an alternative view of another DM, and also the fact that like Matt Mercer is and people like him, like Brennan and stuff, are so tried and tested that like their advice is great and all, but it's coming from essentially a place of I guess I'm not gonna say power, but a place of like such experience that it's kind of it's whereas I think with you and Declan you've got such a level of experience that it's still accessible for new DMs to kind of come in, because you're riding the kind of like the intermediate to kind of experty kind of line and getting there, whereas like I think Mac Mercer and Brennan and those likes are kind of like artistic, they're just masters at this right now, that it's still good to kind of get that new age not new age but newer kind of experience and kind of goes, because like what like Homebrew Quest is like what 5-6 years old now.
Yeah,
um
we were 2018 is when the social media accounts began, and that's when we started playing. Actually, I don't think we started streaming until 2019, or I've gotten those years wrong. It was either 2017 to 2018 or 2018 to 2019, but we were 4 or 5 years on the trot through COVID as well.
yeah, so like so as like turning your game into a live game and stuff like that, so you still like you and Declan have that experience to kind of go, we've been doing it for like 6-7 years kind of thing, and here's our experiences and stuff, whereas masters like Matt Mercer and Brennan and are like they might not have been streaming, but they've been playing DMing for so long that it was just like a natural, and they're so natural to move into the kind of streaming space that as I said, it's good to refresh the topics that may have been talked about before, but from a new angle and just refreshing, you know.
I appreciate you saying that, but you sly little fox, I'm here to interview you. Interviewing me.
Yeah, I have a tendency to do that. Hear us out it anytime we've had a guest on, or because we've had you on the thing when we talked about the D&D movie, and anytime we've done con things where we've kind of like I just naturally turn into an interviewer, I guess.
True, true, true. And hello to everyone joining us in chat. If you have any experience about the topics we're going to talk about tonight, please do not be shy. Jump in there, prove us wrong, throw some curveballs at us, all of that stuff as well. But I think you're right. I think there is an element of, and it's a good thing to take into this conversation we're about to have, learning how to drive from Max Verstappen. It isn't as helpful as learning how to drive from a friend of yours who you can see at the same level, or like a peer being like, okay, that's more the league I'm playing in, so this helps. And I think I used a reference that I Paul, I saw your face. You're like, Ben, you don't even understand the reference
I
you used. I know you. You're like,
I
where did he pull that name out of? But yes. So,
I know Max Verstappen as the Red Bull Formula One driver. Um, but no, it's
I know who that guy is.
oh yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I'm a big F1 fan actually. So like, yeah, I was just like, interesting that you decided to go with Formula One. I find it more relatable. Like that's what I think is the aspect kind of thing. I can relate to you and Declan a lot more than I can relate to Brennan and Matt Mercer. And I think the reason is because I'm probably more more your kind of beginnings and stuff like that than I am with them. So like their advice is great and should be always taken on and stuff like that, but it's like it's also comes from a place of like what we're going to talk about today. It comes from a place of kind of such kind of experience and stuff like that, that it's a degree of detachment, whereas getting many views at a table or about a table and stuff like that is even better, because like the fact is, so I've got you and Declan and Matt Mercer and Brennan and so many other kind of like Griffin McElroy and the McElroy brothers and stuff like that, which is that you kind of get all aspects of kind of the DM chair, that you can then amalgamate your own kind of brand of and style kind of thing as because like that's one of the biggest advices is always to like take it and be it your own and kind of thing. So but like
Mhm.
a lot of people are just like, what does that mean? And it's just like, well, only you can do that.
Yes, we're going to touch on that a little bit later with one of our first tips about teching anything. But we will come to that probably in about half an hour's time. You are very kind to say all those things. And it's also coming in here and starting beef with the big dogs for us. But we should crack into our topic, our kind of first topic of the day, I suppose. Before we do, it's worth mentioning because it just brings it to mind. Your point about getting multiple sources of influence, multiple sources of advice, multiple sources of inspiration reminds me that myself and Paul actually do have like a three-person like DM hive mind. We rarely use it, but with a good friend of ours, and it has been super helpful when I just want to ask a question to other DMs with different styles, popping a question in there, and a little more helpful because it's focused than like an open Discord server where you might be like, has anyone come across this? And then I know it's less likely that my question might be like misinterpreted, or like the context is kind of clear when I'm asking Paul and our friend. Um, and I say that because it gives us a nice little way into what we're talking about, this sort of table testing ideas, that the first thing potentially as we dive into this is picking the right people, I think is a pretty good thing. So before we get into advice and examples, maybe Paul, you could help explain to the audience what we mean by table testing ideas and who it might be useful for.
Yeah, so the topic we're talking about, yeah, so kind of testing out your ideas. So like if you have I've always pictured a really good place to test out anything I'm writing or anything like that. So like I'm an amateur kind of writer, but like to test out any kind of scenes that I'm having difficulties and stuff, I've always thought it would be great to kind of bring it to a table. Because a table like for D&D and tabletop RPGs is like a writer's room, in the sense of you've got a head writer who is the DM, who sets out kind of parts of the scenes and stuff, where you have them character writers essentially around you that talk for their characters. And you can as you play forward in your campaigns and stuff like that, you are doing scenes that are essentially from a TV show and stuff. Like streaming what we like, Homebrew Quest and DA Dungeon, that is what they're doing. They are essentially giving you the scripts and playing out kind of scenes and stuff for your entertainment. And so it's always kind of come to mind that if I've ever needed to kind of like, I've got a scene with a bunch of people and I don't have good dialogue because I want to make it more natural and stuff, bringing it to a D&D table or kind of a TTRPG table would be amazing, because you'd have character writers essentially, and you'd always how you want the scene to go. So being able to get other aspects of how it possibly can go can always be good, because like you can always just like, oh, that's way better, that's way better kind of way of writing it, or for a character like that, it's a way better action that they would take. So that's kind of where we're kind of bringing it to, is using your DM table or your DnD table as a writer's room, to play out scenes and kind of get better ideas, or even just confirming your idea of the scenes and stuff. So yeah, it's an
Yeah,
interesting topic.
I'm looking forward to kind of getting into the meat of it, because it is one of those ones where, and we did, myself and Paul and the homebrew players, as we moved online and we didn't have a real table to be sitting around, when we moved away from being live and in person recording, we were, although we've all known each other for so long, like remote is awkward. It's like picking up like body language, picking up social cues, it drops a little bit. So we did a handful of like Zoom improv classes, for lack of a better term for it. And the reason I bring them up is because I think we very quickly learned a couple of skills there. One was this idea of gaming the scene. So like as a table of people realizing, okay, the tropes we're playing within are XYZ. I can see the pattern of plot that's unfolding here. And that was all well and good for like punching up the entertainment of something. But in terms of progressing the plot, we played a couple of like scenarios out where it's like you're going to start, like for lack of a better example, it's like, Paul, you're playing a character who's going to get a bottle of milk from the store. Ben, you're playing a shopkeeper. You need to guarantee that Paul doesn't walk out of that store with milk, but with coffee. That's the end of the scene. That's the start of the scene. Go. And how we got there would obviously be very different. So for the purpose of this, like testing out your ideas and testing out your plot and finding interesting ways, as a DM, it's also a really handy way to prep. Don't plan the middle, plan the beginning, plan the end. The players are there to do the middle bit. And, you know, be open to changing the end. If like, don't shoehorn it in, but for the purpose of script writing, for the purpose of like writing a novel or a story, it doesn't matter if the game you played at the table is different to the one you had in your head, because you'll still get valuable information from things like, wow, that player really took the energy from 0 to 100. And you know what? It didn't feel unnatural. So I don't think it's over the top for this character to like shed at this other character at this moment, given everything that's been laid out. And I think you can be, I think it's very important to be open with your players in a session 0 or in like a pre-prep to say, hey, I might be kind of testing out some things. Are you cool with that? And in certain situations, if you're like have a regular gaming group and you meet up and you're playing stories, you got a group of like creatives that you trust. You can be overt. You can be like, I'm writing the next Ghostbusters. I can't figure this out. Can we play a Ghostbusters campaign? And I need to like get these things out of my head. And they're all valuable and valid things to go in. There are some challenges that we'll discuss though when it comes to tabling your ideas. Before we get on to that, I want to just dip into the comments for a little bit from Heartfire Tales, who I know are very good at kind of improvising scenes and making sure that it goes in the right direction. There, if you haven't either watched them on Twitch or listened to them on a podcast platform of your choice, you should definitely check them out. There's plenty of genres, plenty of different adventures to check out. And you might even recognize from a previous episode of On A Roll. But they say, I'm very adamant that the GM is responsible for the plot and the characters are responsible for the story. So open-endedness in the middle is super important for that. I couldn't agree more. What I would actually, I'd love you if you're still able to type. How do you separate plot and story? I'd love to know your definitions of those. That we can dip back into the comments after that. But to move us on, we've set the stage, for lack of a better term, Paul. We know what we're talking about. Is there anything before we get into the potential barriers or blockers or challenges, is there anything you'd like to cover or chat about or kind of throw to the writers' room for us to discuss?
Yeah, like it's with the writers' room kind of thing. Like I've done it. I run a game that's been going on for probably about 3 years now, and all of them are brand new and stuff like that. So they're all trying to learn their characters and how you kind of, or like kind of role play a lot more. Because I think that's always an enjoyable part of the game. It's not just the kind of like, your achievements within kind of the game, but also your interactions with the world and stuff. But I'm also writing like I'm trying to write a book, and like there's several scenes that I'm just like, oh, I need to really test these out, kind of things, because like I think I'm too far in my own head about them, and kind of things. So what I've done is I've actually just written them into the plot of, or into the D&D game, and like I've gotten really surprising kind of great interactions and stuff like that. Even though like and the important thing is that it's not apples to apples. Like my scene in what I'm trying to write has like 3 characters, whereas I run a game of 6. So like,
Mm.
there's, and they're, none of the characters in the D&D game are anything like the characters in the thing, but it's throwing out a scenario in which you'll see how people who know their characters interact with what's going on, kind of thing, which is great, because like there's plenty of angles that I've been given now from different kind of people who have different characters who have different backgrounds and different kind of motivations and stuff like that are slightly distant or difference to my character's motivations and kind of backgrounds. So like it's always interesting, and but like it's great at a table, I think, for that element, because like if you got a bunch of people and you can be like, as you say, I'm kind of writing this scene and I'm having a little bit of difficulties. Could we improv it? All it does is it helps you write the scene and stuff like that. But what it also does is it also kind of gives him practice of more role playing kind of elements, kind of thing. Because you can be just like, you're playing kind of your character, but these are the differences, kind of thing. So like I always find that it's also, not only is it handy for you to kind of get a little bit of feedback and kind of see other angles, it's also good for your table because they're trying out new things, they're trying to interact as different people or improv kind of thing. And if you've got a really good, or not even a really good, if you've got a very enthusiastic role playing table, then they're going to have fun at it, kind of thing. As long as obviously you talk to your table first and make sure that they're okay. And it's just like, yeah, but we only have like 2 hours of gaming, and I don't want half an hour of this to be taken up by, so that kind of,
Yeah,
that's what I really enjoy.
you're doing an project. This is my important gaming time, and I charge an hourly rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you bring up a good point in that you don't have to wait for the perfect in-game moment, or you don't have to wait for the perfect alignment of what your story is, like what the screenplay, the book, the comic book, the poem, whatever you're writing, and the game, because you'll still come across universal beats. Like as a DM, you'll have an opportunity to go, oh, this is where their motivation started to kick in. Or like it was at this point in the scene when like this was revealed that that's where the biggest spike of change was happening. That's the crux of the plot. That's the kind of like, it wasn't until I said as the big bad that, and I'm doing it all for love, that the players lent in a bit more. And you're like, ah, okay. That's that's what driving them. And although all characters will have different motivations, those motivations are still coming from an emotional place. So it's like interesting. They reacted with jealousy, or they reacted with power hunger, or they reacted with rightfulness, or they reacted with integrity. But they reacted with something. So you just need to know your characters well enough to go, well, what's their core ideals and how did that come into play? We did get an answer from Heart Tales, and I think it is a perfect summation. I'm glad I asked. So, in an answer, the difference between plot and story, plot is what's happening in the world. It's what the inciting factors are, what the NPCs are planning to do, and ultimately what will happen if the players do nothing. So, for example, the plot is a vampire has moved into a town and is searching for a bride. The story is the players have found this out and are stopping him. So I think that's really nice. And I think that's a perfect example for how to add in interesting twists and drama to your stories, because sometimes, and I mean this almost as a reflection on me, but I think it's a trait shared by a lot of new writers, everything happens too simply. I need to get from A to B, and I'm not going to cause any complication in between because I just want to get from A to B. and the most fascinating stories, the most interesting stories, even the ones that when you really sit down and think of it, shouldn't have happened, have things getting in the way. It's a great tip if you're a D&D player, if you're a DM, if you're a player at the table, throw barriers in front of your character, see how they overcome them. A good example of this is Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. If Indy did nothing, the movie still happens. But you know what doesn't happen? We don't fall in love with Indiana Jones. That's the point. Like, it wasn't that like that he needed to stop something. So if it just was A to B without, like, Indy's the interruption there. If you think about it, that like showrunner or that screenwriter was like, all right, I'm going to write this incredible story about how the Nazis are going to find the Ark of the Covenant and they're going to use it to win the war, and the player is Indy causing problems. Like, that's that situation. Which brings us into the second half of this topic, which is we wanted to talk a little bit before we got into a live example about how it can be hard to give up ownership, to hand over creative control. If you're a DM, I don't want to judge. You probably have a small control complex to a big control complex. Pair that with being an author, pair that with being a screenwriter, a video game designer, a comic book artist, whatever you will, in terms of creating narrative stories. And often one of the criticisms thrown against DMs who railroad is like, if you want to write that, go write a book. That's the kind of, like, if you don't want input, go write a book. So Paul, do you have any advice for writers out there about like how to not be precious about their work and find a place where they can be open to collaboration or open to inspiration?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I actually have a big problem with this. I like, Ben knows this. I have consistently said that I'm not funny. I'm not a good character and stuff like that within Homebrew Quest and stuff like that, which obviously people disagree with, which I'm very happy for. But it's just it's not a confidence thing. It's just more kind of like just an inbuilt kind of self character kind of thing. But that's the same thing for my writing, and when I'm seeing it, it's kind of, you become very protective of it in a way. But you have to realize that, like, as a DM or a writer, you're not writing as essentially entirely for yourself. You're writing it for someone like you. So like, you're trying to entertain in some fashion. So that's the core. That's the always thing that gets me over it, is the fact is that you're doing this for someone else. Essentially, I'm DMing because I like to DM, because I like to see other people enjoying my stories and interacting and getting adventures. I like it when they defeat my boss and they kind of even just go, suck it, Paul. I'm just like, great. Yeah, no, that's like, I'm happy that they feel some kind of achievement and stuff. But that's the part that people need to get to, is when people read your writing or you're DMing and stuff and you're trying to give up control, realizing that the whole reason you're doing this is to entertain someone else. Kind of, if it's like the thing I'm trying to write, I'm trying to essentially just entertain 14-year-old Paul, really, kind of thing. So like, that's what I think about when I write. And then when I'm DMing, I'm trying to kind of give up control to let my players have fun with it, kind of thing. I do know that, like, as a human, obviously it's still like a nervous twitch of kind of going, yeah, but I really want them to go here, and kind of thing. But have the thought, allow yourself to have the thought, but just don't force it, kind of thing. Don't force that thought. But it's always something that you're going to struggle with, if you're a person who, like, kind of, as it's so hard to give up control of scenes and story and stuff like that, as you are protective, but you just gotta eventually, even just little bits and stuff. So
I'm leaning forward just to make sure my phone doesn't die. There we go. I wasn't just cupping you like, oh, my precious boy. That was such
poor, yeah. Yeah, Yeah, it's such a it is a difficult kind of thing to give up control, especially if you are like if you are drawn to the DM chair, you're automatically drawn to control. And not not like not a small group of us, but probably the majority have some kind of god complex kind of thing going on a little bit with making worlds and stuff like that. But you have to realize that you have to let people play in it. It's the only entertainment way stuff. So, and it's a lot more fun for you eventually. You know, eventually you become part of the group in your other way, and it's a lot more fun to have other people play with you in that space that you've created. You know.
Yeah, I think you're like, it's such wonderful advice that you have to remember your audience and whoever that audience is. What you said, this is a perfect example, and I'm going to fail your test. So, but I'm also going to provide advice that passes your test. So, just because you have the thought doesn't mean you need to say it. So, what I'm going to say next opens up a thread of discussion we will not go down, but I need to say it because my brain is screaming at me. And that is, there's a very good undergraduate essay about how God is a DM and the Old Testament is a new DM being like, I have all the control. You have to do my thing, my thing, my thing. And the New Testament is a kind of learned DM being like, you've free will, play in my worlds, do the like, and I'm not a theologian, but New Testament God seems like they're having more fun. So there's, and that's the like, that's an interesting little take, but we won't go any further down with it because it's not what we're talking about. But also an example of me being like, what I should do there, and I think that could help a lot of writers and creators, is I think the impulse to force people into a situation, I could be wrong here, comes from a place of this is my only chance to tell this story. It becomes a lot more freeing as a creator to look in the mirror and say, I am not a golden goose who's going to run out of eggs. Like, I don't have to cram all my ideas into this one thing. So if I have an idea on how it should have gone, or a different direction, or um, a new thought, guess what? That's book two. That's a different series. That's something else. Like, create for creating's sake. I know I got a lot more personal writing done when I stopped sitting down and saying, like, I'm going to write this one book. And I just started writing every day. I took a week off and wrote a film because I was just like, what am I going to write this week? And I was like, oh, there's a film that's been in my head. That's there, done. I'm going to do the same thing this year, take a week off work, go to the library every day. But this time I'm not going to write with anything in mind. If it's a poem one day, great. If it's the start of a story the next day, perfect. I'm just writing, but I'm writing not purposelessly. It's like my purpose is to entertain the audience I want to entertain that day. And whether that is 14-year-old Ben, or whether that is university Ben who wants to be a little bit like wanky and pompous about like his love of using like alliteration in words, that's all fine. And some days it might be all right for my partner. I'll come home and go, I wrote your story, I think you'll like. Um, but knowing that you have within you limitless creativity means you can be a little less precious about every individual idea and a little more precious about your voice, who you are as a creator.
Yeah, that's a really good, yeah, like the I yeah, one of the most difficult things about that kind of writing is yeah, don't pigeonhole yourself into kind of like, into a genre or anything like that. Like, writing is like a muscle, your imagination is like a muscle as well, kind of thing. And I do find that as you get older, and I do find as you get older, that muscle gets less and less used, kind of thing, which is a massive pity. There's a TED talk actually on imagination, which I definitely think people should go see or go watch. But yeah, no, it's writing and stuff like that. Creativity is such a muscle, and like many muscles that you have, obviously there's like different kind of substructures of a muscle kind of thing. So like you can be like going into fantasy or sci-fi and stuff like that, but writing is the main muscle. And I do think, yeah, just stretching that out and not kind of picking anything particular is a very good kind of way of keep going, because then when you decide to kind of, I guess, choose a specific place that you want to go to, if you want to do fantasy or gaming or like any kind of writing specifically for that kind of stuff, you've got such a good foundation. that all you have to do is then kind of go, I've now like you, instead of just the wideness, you've then constrained yourself into one kind of aspect of that, which makes it a little bit easier, I find, because like yeah, I've done kind of random prompts, kind of thing, writing and stuff. I've actually got a book and kind of random prompts that I just flick open and just kind of point at something and then start writing to help me out, and then go back to like my kind of thing that I want to write, and it feels so liberating and kind of like stretched out, kind of thing, which I do like, but it's also nerve wracking, I guess, is some things, because like a lot of people think that they need to, if they don't practice and stuff like that, that it goes away, and it's just like, no, it just becomes a little bit stiff, and like then you get back to it and stuff. Like, you don't need to be doing 500 words a day, right? Like, write a sentence, story, like, what is it, the shortest story in the world is like, is 5 words long or something like that.
If it's not the baby, because that one's 6, and it's like it's such a good form. Like For Sale, Baby Shoes Never Worn is that classic 6-word story. But I think they've bet it. I think you're right. I think there's a 5-word one, and I do think there's now. I mean, theoretically, there's a 1-word story, and that 1 word is run.
Yeah.
What a story! Like that's, and everyone goes, okay, great, yeah, or anything like that. So, but yeah, you don't have to write. Funny enough, and it's a really good example about writing. To get to those 5 words, 5,000, 50,000, 5 million words that you'll never see the light of day, because they were just writing. They were just flexing that muscle, which meant when they sat down to go, right, the constraint I'm going to put on myself, fantasy or 6 words, is what can I get across? And you can put those same constraints on your scenes in TTRPG games. So you can go, I'm gonna run a villain, and for once the villain's not gonna talk. No monologue, no big thing. What's gonna happen? Like, and worst case scenario, you pick up in the room that you need to say something, but then like right out that discomfort a little bit. Just see what happens to players when a villain doesn't act like they expect. Just to find out. Because that's how your audience will feel. They'll be like, the fuck. With the look at the time, I don't know if there's anything you want to say before we go into our live example.
Well, I was just going to say, just one thing about the run thing, that's also a great example of kind of like, once it leaves your mind, it becomes something different in others. Like, that's the thing. It's like, when you said run, I got a picture of like just a monster, but I bet people have gotten this thing of like, zombies or, just some kind of disaster. Like, everybody takes a or like, an interpretation of certain things, which is great. You always need to remember that as well as a writer, is the sense of like, and as a DM, is the interpretation will be completely different for each person, which is a really handy tool to be just like, once this leaves me, this doesn't become, it becomes something else with everybody else, which is good, kind of thing. So it's a good reminder of, or it should be a good, you should be reminded of that aspect as well, kind of thing. So I think actually the Patrick Heroes is actually, yeah, that's my co-host on Heroes. So is
Yeah,
asking
it's
a question there.
I'll ask it to you, and I think it ties into what you were just saying. So Patrick asks, when DMing, and you can see someone at the table is really getting where you're going, and essentially they're being just like you would if you were a player, not a DM. Do you have to be aware of that so you don't start subconsciously shaping things to suit them as a live co-writer?
Uh, yes, but it's a very handy tool when someone has that. When someone realizes where you're going with things, it's very handy tool, because it means that there's one. So let's say you have 4 people at the table, and one of them is getting where you're going, and they're kind of following the breadcrumbs and stuff like that. It makes it a lot easier to kind of then grab the other players, because someone other than the DM is following along and making the changes. So although shaping it towards that one character is a little bit of a difficult thing, of not just going like, oh yeah, Ben gets this, so let's just keep going with Ben. You do need to kind of bring in the other characters, but I do find that, because now it's not one person, it's 2 people that are able to bring in the others, because like, you as a DM will ask each person at the table, but so will that character. the character will interact with the people around them. So you can be just like, there's a spooky castle. What do you know? And they're just like, okay, we're like, one player could be just like, we're doing a vampire, we're doing Dracula. Okay, cool. I'm following this along. They'll ask questions of the characters that they're partying with, and they kind of they bounce along, which is really handy. But yeah, it's it also depends, because there's two ways about it. If it's someone's particular character story arc that you want to like thing, it's very hard to not just keep with them, kind of thing. If it's a general story, then I think it's a lot easier to kind of not stick with them and kind of bounce around, because you're kind of naturally doing that anyway. But yeah, it's something you need to check yourself, I guess. With in the generalization, you need to check yourself. In a character plot thing, you two are driving the story there because you want them to have their moment.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I would even say, like, everything's depends on the context. It's not necessarily a bad thing if people are picking up the tropes you're laying down. I have an audience theory, and I know people disagree with this. Like, and by all means feel free to. That audiences don't like surprises. So audiences like anticipation, audiences like suspense, and there's a really good example, and I wish I could remember where it's from. But say, for example, but let's take this situation. Myself and Paul are talking, and the conversation that's just happened over the last 40 minutes is the exact same conversation. But imagine you watching knew that underneath the table between us was a bomb set to 50 minutes. That changes the conversation we had.
Yeah.
So the audience need to know that. But us as characters would never know that. And in fact, that's what makes it exciting, that we don't know. So the reason I bring that up with it's okay when someone picks up what you're putting down is that if it feels like like a worn groove on a record, but it's a shortcut for an audience to know what you're talking about, it's not always a bad thing. And I'm not saying that from the kind of like, because we don't have attention spans anymore. I disagree with that. We sit down and we watch things that entertain us, and we'll watch it for as long as it entertains us, whether that's 6 seconds or 6 hours. And our attention will drift when the content has lost our attention. So finding ways to get people comfortable in the plot so they can catch up, always handy. But then also being aware that you need to surprise them, it's a perfect segue, I think, into our live example. We'll spend maybe 10 minutes on this, because I'm conscious we don't want to use up the tech side of the chat. The basic premise here is that I've picked a scene from a movie in my head, a real scene that exists. And I should have prepped it more like a D&D session, but I can riff with it, I can improvise with it. I'm going to run Paul through the situation to see if at the end of the scene we're more or less like what happened in the movie, or see where it goes. So, Paul, for context, you are playing one of the Randirs in the Randir verse of all the multiple Randir verses.
Okay.
You are playing a give or take level 3 bard Randir. You're charismatic. You are the protagonist, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
And you have been told that there's another Randir you have to go talk to. This Randir is important to the fabric of reality, and you need to convince this Randir to have a conversation with. Actually, I'll set the scene. You're in a small, idyllic town, but it is one of the residencies for the local monarch, and a local princess is in town. And you need to convince the Randir to have a conversation with this princess. And we'll kind of pick up on the scene in which you've kind of managed, you convince them to do it. So we'll pick up in a local tavern. You're sitting there just making sure that destiny happens the way it should. And that's essentially where we pick up the scene. So you're sitting at the bar counter. You see that there is a half elf behind the bar, is sort of like cleaning glasses, and hands you over a fresh, nice, crisp ale. And behind you, within earshot and distance, other Randir, they're not a bard. They're more like a wizard or potentially even a sorcerer, but they're actually not sorcerer, definitely wizard. High intelligence.
This is an Ethan Hawke film, possibly, is it?
It's not.
Okay, good. Okay.
But yeah. Give me a. And if you don't have dice, that's fine. You can just make a number. Or I have dice as well if it helps.
I can grab dice actually. I should have dice around.
Yeah, grab D20 is all we probably need. Don't worry, we'll just go with D20.
Probably outside. No, I'll grab a D8 on the old or a D20 on the old Google. It's probably easier.
Yeah.
Right. So I got a 5, so that's not great.
5. That's all right. You're sitting at the tavern counter, and you're trying to listen in to hear what this reindeer is saying. You see them kind of sort of brush down their sweaty palms. They're psyching themselves up, and they go over to the princess, who's sitting with some of their friends and kind of advisors, and they're just sort of, it's like they can't get the words out, and they just don't know. They're freezing up in the moment, and like, now's the chance. Like this, you're sitting there and you don't know if this little reindeer is sinking or swimming.
Okay, so I think I might know it already. Yeah, I guess I go with, like, I'm gonna walk up to them and kind of I guess, yeah. So this is gonna be real hard to not play that character.
I mean, I suppose it's fine if you do. If you figured it out, that's all.
That's gonna be real bad if I. So we're in the cafeteria. They're kind of getting there, or we're in the tavern. They're getting kind of ready to go up to the princess and talk. I'm gonna go up and just be like, do they know me already? We've established that they know me. Okay.
They don't know that you're a reindeer, but you know you're a reindeer. You haven't told them because it's important that they don't know.
Grant, which is, I'm gonna put my hand on his shoulder and just be like, Reindeer, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna say?
I don't know, man. Like, I suppose I'll say that between the world that's out there and the magic that exists in here, it's important that me and you make history.
Like it's romantic and stuff like that, but like maybe not so intense. Maybe so, kind of you just want to, like, you just want to. I'm guessing you want to ask her out to the dance.
I mean, I'm sure. Why not?
Like, I'm just which is like, you need to just kind of have an introduction kind of thing. You wanna just show who you like. You don't want to go so intense, man. You just want to kind of, like, ease yourself into it. You might scare her off immediately.
That's easy for a guy like you, but I don't know. Like, I'll give it a shot. And this reindeer sort of turns around again, and it's at this point in time you hear the door of the tavern kind of crash open, and heavy footsteps step in, and you hear someone go, "Reindeer, I thought I told you never to come around these parts."
Yeah. Yeah. May have.
I think, yeah. So
people in the chat, if they know what it is, post it up, kind of thing.
They don't know which one.
Yeah, I know. That's gonna be.
No, they definitely do. There's only one it could be. The other one's a different story. But I suppose, knowing what it is now, purposely play it different. Change the plot on me, and that might be an interesting. Yeah,
I'll choose what Randir would do rather than kind of what Marty McFly would do. Yeah. Yeah. Which I've already given it away. Which is, I guess, so my character will probably see how it plays out a bit, kind of thing, because he's obviously not talking to me, but I am standing right beside Randir, so.
Yeah, you see this half-orc barbarian trundle into the diner and loom over Randir. You see... Actually, give me an insight check.
I got an 11.
11. The whole tavern's uncomfortable with this person being here. They don't like the vibe they bring in. But with an 11, you can tell that this is the point in time in which the power dynamic has shifted in Randir. And Randir goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Gruff. I'll just get out of your way. Just pretend you never saw me." And they go to leave.
I'm gonna cast Bardic Inspiration on other Randir. To kind of give them a little bit more confidence. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna be like, Randy, where are you going? We're talking.
I just Gruff's right. I'm not a guy who hangs around in taverns. I'm a guy who just hangs around at home all the time. So listen, it was really nice to meet you, but I don't know. History's gonna have to find another hero.
Before he leaves, before he goes, I'm gonna cast Vicious Mockery on the half-orc Griff is what we're calling.
We're calling him Gruff, yeah.
Gruff, okay, Gruff. And it's been like, what, this bonehead here? No, he's nothing, you know.
All right. Let me roll. Yeah. 12. And I'm going to say their wisdom is pretty low. So I'm going to say fail, and they take psychic damage. And you feel the kind of sun get blocked out a little bit. If this person just sort of like they twitch a little and turn around and go, "I don't think I was talking to you. Who are you calling nothing?" And they stand up to their full height, and they are looming over you now.
Oh, I am. I'm calling you that. I'm sorry. Did that, was that not clear? Like, you know, I thought, you know, at least you'd be intelligent enough to know where the voice was coming from, right? Unless there's a lot of voices in your head.
They put their fist into their hand and go, "Listen, I don't know who you are, but you're obviously not from around here. My name's Gruff. I'm kind of a big deal. Ain't that right, princess?" And like he just kind of leans back and kind of gives her a wink. And he goes, "So unless you want a problem, you should make like Randir and leave."
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was going to be more intelligence to that. Which is, so let me get this straight. You're a big douche. I should leave with the coolest person over there. Like, and you should just be bothering everybody around here, kind of thing. Is that what we're getting to, kind of thing? Like, I just don't understand. I get it. You're a big dude with muscles who, you know, is underdeveloped in the social kind of aspects of things and just uses their. I'm sorry, I shouldn't. I'm a bard. I'm gonna take out a loot and just.
You will be bard. And you two of the humans smaller behind them go, "Nice one, Gruff." As you're talking, you see Gruff is like reaching out onto a counter and pulls like a kind of gross frothy beer. They're about to dunk it on your head, but you are aware of the situation enough to change this if you wish.
Ooh. Yeah, I guess I'll use like sleight of hand to essentially like block it and kind of force it onto them a little bit.
Yeah, nice. Give me a sleight of hand roll.
Let's see how this goes. 18.
18, nice. Yeah, as Gruff begins to pour it, you manage to like pop their arm so the drink goes up and back onto their face, and you feel this beer to splash onto them, and this furious look comes on, and they go to dive for you. I'm gonna make a grapple check, and I want you to make an athletics or acrobatics to get out of the way.
I got a 17.
Ooh. 17. I only got an 8. You duck as Gruff goes over the bar counter and smashes into the barrels behind, giving you an opportunity to kind of assess the scene if you want.
Yeah, I'm going to turn to him and be like, "You are right. I am going to leave. You know, I'm going to leave with the person who taught me everything I know, Randir over there," and then kind of like walk up to Randir and kind of put my arm around him and kind of walk out of the place.
Nice.
I think that's better. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. You leave, and as you pass by the tavern window, you see the princess inside and goes, "Isn't he a dreamboat?" And that's where we'll end. That's it. Which is a good example, I suppose, of knowing how that scene needs to end is the princess falling in love with Marty. Sorry, Marty's mom falling in love with Marty and not George. But another way to do it. So instead of a big chase scene with a skateboard, a bar fight instead, which I think is how they do it in the third one. But then they also throw in the chase scene just for good fun.
Yeah, like that's the kind of thing. But yeah, no, it's recognizing the other one I was thinking of was the Ethan Hawke Press Edition film, which I was really hoping that you weren't going to go into because that seems real weird. But yeah, no, yeah, no, it's that's a really good one because yeah, I know that I have to the goal of the characters to make the other Randir look good, but and then make kind of like I guess make Gruff look bad kind of thing, so that it's and if for my characters kind of make him look bad so that he looks less intimidating for Randir that I'm trying to kind of big up is kind of like what's the motivation there for my character, rather than with Randir with Marty McFly's I guess motivations is just reactive.
Yes. Yeah, true. I think that went better than I expected, but in a really good I thought a live example might be beneficial. Ties us back to the initial start of the show when we were talking about like, you know, advice from masters versus just like putting it into practice and just giving it a go and trying it out. And speaking of giving things a go, so actually we should, anyone watching, we're not taking a break, but we're going to go for probably another 15-20 minutes and then end the episode. There's no like mid-show break this time. We're just talking all the way through. But I think a good place as any to leave the what to do when you're tabling ideas at the tabletop table. And we can come back to it. I think it's a nice segment we can dip back into and move now into what it's like being a stream producer, whether that's for a TTRPG or whether that's for a show like Hear Us Out or anything else in between. And I think we might focus specifically on live streams as opposed to dipping into like advice for podcasting or pre-recording or any of that kind of stuff, because and potentially Paul, you might come back and chat to us about when we do a couple of Homebrew Quest pre-records and get that kind of machine rolling, we might bring you back on to chat about what it's like when you're pre-recording things and how that's different to live streams. But for the sake of today, I wanted to chat to you a little bit about Hear Us Out, which is on every Thursday on YouTube. And there's a couple of questions. Before I dive into them, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience as a stream producer? You're currently producing this stream.
I guess so. The start of the whole thing was when kind of Twitch kind of exploded, and I just got really interested in kind of just streaming because I really liked gaming and stuff like that, and I love filming and stuff. So I was interested in the technology behind kind of Twitch and stuff like that. So I kind of started looking into it a lot more. This was ages ago. Like I've actually removed some of the old videos, kind of thing. But it was back when I started streaming, which I don't really do anymore. It was interesting. The technology was kind of one of the biggest things, and my way of kind of getting to learn a new kind of coming like a new element of filming and stuff, because I love films and TV. So like it was a great introduction to kind of streaming and the technology, the film technology that was to do with that. Was kind of where I started kind of producing, I guess, streams, and then it advanced a little bit more to streaming stuff for conventions, and then it moved on to Hear Us Out, which I do myself with Patrick, and then obviously Homebrew Quest came along as well, so I started helping to produce that as well. So along the way, it's just picking up. It was this kind of learning was the big kind of like, I guess, skill set that I really needed to kind of, I guess, exercise from old days, kind of thing. But yeah, that's what got me into producing a lot of streams, was just the interest in the technology, and then I got more interested in the subjects that were being streamed, which made the whole thing a lot more fun, kind of thing. So that's where it began, I guess, and where it ends.
You have you have a trait that I find really admirable in people, which is when you're curious about something or take enjoyment from something, you don't let like a lack of knowledge or experience hold you back. And I don't mean that in a kind of like you just
You're
bumble on it.
terrible.
I mean, the opposite trait of that is, well, I have to learn everything about this before I even do anything. And I think the only way to learn fast is to learn doing. Um, and with that in mind, I think there's something when it comes to streaming, and we were chatting about this before the show started today, which was just like, don't worry about overlays, don't worry about fancy show stuff, don't worry about the graphics. If you have a camera and you have a stream key and you have OBS, just go live. Like go live for 15 minutes, go live for 5, go live, just test it out, see what you like. It's okay to learn as you go. And it ties back to our writing conversation, which is just write. Don't worry about what you're writing. And which is why we've sort of paired them together, because they all come from that creative curiosity of just do and learn as you do and grow as you do. And with that in mind, you were telling me a very interesting anecdote about Hear Us Out. Hear Us Out is now, I would know it more as a live show, but
Yeah.
I would be wrong in assuming it was always a live show.
Yeah, that's the so on the history of Hero Site, me and Patrick wanted to do recordings. The idea was to do recordings so we can essentially refine what we were talking about. Hero Site, for people who don't know, is a entertainment commentary kind of show that we do on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. It talks about movies and TVs and different aspects. So like either just reviewing them or talking about kind of the industry at large. But we wanted to refine that a lot more. Which was so we started to record things and then edit them a lot more. It wasn't until like and we did that in one place. We did that in where Patrick was. And when kind of lockdowns hit and it was harder to kind of consistently see each other in one place, we moved to live streaming. And we kind of changed to live streams and live shows. And we've actually doing that longer than we have been doing the pre-records kind of thing. So there's an interesting evolution kind of thing of producing, I guess, is the fact is that you need to kind of improvise and adapt quickly and stuff like that so that you can keep doing what you want to do. But on what you were saying about just doing stuff, Heroes 8's first show is a trailer, is a commentary on trailers on the Infinity War, I think, trailer kind of thing. We didn't know if we were going to release that one, and we just decided to just do it. We just decided to release it and then kind of get the feedback and stuff like that. There's a lot of other things. The first time I streamed for, as you said, I streamed for 15 minutes just to test out stuff, and then I did that again and again and again, kind of thing. And then eventually I started going like, okay, well now I have this foundation of kind of being able to do a stable stream. It doesn't look great, it doesn't sound great, but I'll do an hour, kind of thing. And then you learn something new, which was kind of more about energy than anything else, because you're interacting with a game and then you're talking to chat. If you're lucky that there's people there, kind of thing. But it's more that you've got something to interact. But that gets tiresome very quickly because you're not used to it. Like for this show, we've been talking for about an hour, and like I can go on for another 6 or 7. But that's because I've grown kind of the energy to be able to do that. So that was something else I needed to learn is when you're producing a stream, you need to realize the kind of gaps that your players or the people on the camera will have as well. Is that some of them might be not as stream ready as others, kind of thing. So it's very much kind of knowing that balance as well, which was one of the things I never knew I would learn. It was a very kind of like, oh, okay, I've been going for 20 minutes. This is I'm absolutely wrecked and I don't know what to talk about and kind of thing. So that was an interesting learning thing. But yeah, it's always about learning. Learn a foundation.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Pick a foundation. Stability for producing streams is the biggest thing. Everything else comes around that. Is probably my biggest takeaway from any of this. So
There's something in the essence of learn, practice, fail, repeat, learn, succeed. And it harkens to, I think this is a good piece of advice for anyone who makes. The people you admire, the people you respect, the people who you think, God, their quality is so good. You're seeing, you know, you're seeing them after they've honed their talent. You're not seeing rehearsals, you're not seeing them learning, you're not seeing the kind of like behind the curtains. And there's that classic quote you see around, it's like, stop comparing someone's finished product to your sketches. And with that in mind, a friend of mine also who's quite good at accents often gets the kind of like, wow, you're really good at impressions. And his response, which is very honest, is often, thanks, I practice a lot. And so like at home, in the mirror, in doing anything else, if you're into streaming from a video game point of view, I know this sounds silly, but guess what? No one's in the room with you. If you want to practice talking for an hour while playing a game, just talk for an hour the next time you're playing a game. No cameras, no stream, no nothing. Just flex that muscle a little bit. And like, look, you might live with housemates, you might have a partner, you might live with your family. I grew up going to like drama school. I had to get over like singing in the shower and singing out loud and then like doing impressions around the house. There'd be times where I'd go out to the shed and just do them there because my family would make fun of me and it would be like in good nature. But when you're so like, when not like an ego is the wrong thing, but when like something you care about is being attacked, you're like, oh, I don't want to have to put up with defending, like trying to learn how to do an English accent in front of my family who are like, well, that's not very good. It's like, well, thanks. I've been doing it for 5 minutes. So like, give me a break. So learn in a space that's comfortable for you, I guess, is the point I was getting around to there. We have a question in from chat, and I think you'll be well poised to answer this, Paul. What are the biggest stumbling blocks when it comes to going from beginner to intermediate in terms of streaming? And that's from Heartfire Tales, asking that one.
The biggest stumbling blocks is realizing that video and the kind of overlays are kind of the the overlays are actually the easiest part. They're the easiest part to make you look as clean as possible. Uh, Not in any way to kind of badmouth any kind of like, you know, people who do generally kind of put a lot of work into their overlays and stuff, which everybody does. But it's the easiest, to me, it's the easiest part to make yourself look a little bit more polished. Um, Knowing that between beginner and intermediate is a really big thing. Is you can make yourself look as really really nice just with some really really good overlays and stuff, which don't take too long to kind of produce. Uh, it's the other stumbling block is realizing that video isn't as important as voice. There is you have, and also so as part of that, you also realize that a lot of people are second screening this. That's one of the biggest importance, which makes the voice thing so much more important. From a tabletop RPG standpoint, you are the theater of the mind. So like learning that aspect is kind of going, yeah. So you are more likely having people on the other side on another screen, so your voice is very important, kind of thing. And video isn't as important as you think, because the problems I find with beginners, every time I chat with them, is the fact is that they try to do everything at once. Because as you said, they're trying to compare themselves to, like, you know, finished products and stuff like that, and they don't also realize that each part of it is also done by a different person a lot of the time. So the professional streams are done by a few people. So you'll have people whose sole job is to make you look good on camera. Then they'll have an audio guy, and then they'll have like overlays and graphics people. So you have to focus on things that you find important. And at the beginning, the two things that I have to say to focus on is stability and the voice. And that doesn't mean the mic. It actually means how you project and everything like this. It's how you speak, how you change your voice to kind of get different things across and everything. So from there, then you learn the other kind of, from intermediate, then you learn kind of the other aspects, which is to make it more polished and everything like that, kind of thing. So that's why I find it always, and then you find the tidbits as well, kind of thing. So like testing broadband and stuff like that is part of the stability thing, but learning each of the where to find the facts and updates and stuff like that is another intermediate kind of thing. Um, and then one of the other biggest stumbling blocks is the is realizing that you're never going to be, there's no such thing as intermediate or pro, really. You're always learning. And that's the biggest important thing. You need to always remember that you are a beginner in some aspect of streaming, kind of thing, which makes it a lot easier kind of going into it, because you go in it with eyes open. So I guess, yeah, give yourself a break as a beginner. You're going to stumble and stuff like that, but the problems teach you so much. As an intermediate, yeah, knowing that you're a beginner still, and being able to improvise and adapt is quite important. And then never be afraid, never apologize for a bad stream or anything. You can apologize to the people you're working with and stuff like that, but never apologize to the audience, kind of thing, of there being a bad stream or anything like that. Just learn from what you've done wrong and stuff like that, and never let them, or try to never let them happen again. Because the second that you start apologizing and stuff like that, you're going to get into a loop.
I want to build on that last point a little bit, because and it's almost to add an extra level to it. I know you well enough to know that when you're saying never apologize for a bad stream, you don't mean like be arrogant and everything's amazing. But at the point that people often miss, especially when you are performing, and this is true for like stand-up comedians or like improviser, anyone who's like puts themselves in front of an audience, only you know how good or how bad compared to everything else you have been. And often the audience do not know. Unless it's like a totally like unignorable tech goblin-y thing, which will happen. Like you said, no such thing as intermediate or pro. Tech problems happen to us all. Tech, it's the ultimate leveler. But the point being, that kind of like, oh, sorry guys, bad stream today. Chances are, if someone was watching and they stuck watching, they were having a good time. And by kind of saying, sorry, you're taking something from them. Like their agency of enjoyment, or their agency of like choosing to stick around, or their agency to like, I'm always very thankful, like incredibly appreciative when people watch live, when people watch VODs, when people spend any amount of their life listening to me. They could be doing anything else. To everyone watching live, have you seen The Wire? It's class. It's better than this right now. So like, thank you for being here, because you're actively choosing to spend your time with us and not somewhere else. And so with that in mind, I will do my best to put on the best stream I can. I will know when I've been bad, and I will improve. Declan will tell you, if you're ever sitting down with Declan, it's like we go off air and I'm like, okay, so for the next time, these are the 3 things I'm doing better. And he's like, Ben, do you ever give yourself a break where you're not learning and improving? And I'm like, I don't know how. I will pick up, but I'll try to keep up I'll try not break kayfabe and let people be like, oh, okay, he was bad and XYZ. Or that's not to say that like you don't have to say you're not having an off day. Sometimes a good stream is when you straight up admit, hey guys, I'm a little bit different in energy today, and you just set the right expectations. It's the ultimate point there is being kind to yourself and giving yourself a break, and improving little by little. And you're so right. Sometimes with overlays, less is more. Like some of my favorite like Twitch stream overlays is like, it's full screen camera and they've got like a little light box around them, and the light just sort of moves around it. That's all it does. And I'm like, oh, so good. Now, often it's a just chatting stream. They don't need to cut away to stuff. They're not often having guests on where it's multiple cameras. And in terms of a TTRPG point of view, because I suppose that's the point of this, when you're cutting to like Roll20s and stuff, suddenly you're dealing with 6 cameras, a cast of 6, and a big screen and a big map. And the map needs to be big enough for the audience to see, but the cast can't be small enough that the audience lose them either, even though we know audio is more important. And I often think in those situations, as a viewer, I almost rather when streams cut full screen map and then cut back full screen cast. I don't really need to see everything together. But I know that that's a personal preference. There are viewers out there who like, no, I like all my information. They have like a Graceland wall of TVs, amount of information. That's how they like to consume. They're like, I like seeing the map, I like seeing the players, I like seeing this. So that's just me as a personal I like go full screen on the DM, go full screen on, and like, look, I know camera quality comes into play there. We started doing it like first episode of Homebrew was multiple cams cutting in, and our camera quality is not good enough for that level of full screen, so we stopped. But hopefully the next time we do it will be good quality again. And we started playing with, like, it's not until we had an 80 episode campaign, it's not until maybe episode, I would like to say 60, that we started doing like double cam stuff. Like the occasional kind of like, oh, it's a scene with two people, let's just go 2 cams. And we only did it when we could. If we weren't like set up for that stream for that day to do it, we didn't worry about our production quality like hitting a high and then going back to like manageable and then like bringing that back down again. So it goes back to that stability. Like, do the best with what you have, because that's always going to be good.
Yeah, like that's the important. As a producer for streams and stuff like that, your job is to put something out essentially at a quality that still entertains and stuff like that. So that's always the kind of goal that you have, kind of thing. Like, one of the biggest reasons why we didn't kind of move to any other cameras and stuff like that was it was also new for everybody else. We had moved from in person to online, which is a big difference, and a lot of different energies and stuff like that. So like, I would say that if we were still doing in-person streams, you would find that us cutting to like, particular people, like, talking and stuff like that, and the close up of the DM and stuff and split screens would have been sooner. But like changing the energy in the room, or changing the energy in the on the table, made it so that you have to kind of like roll with the punches and kind of like, okay, we need your stability level changes. It's no longer just the streaming tech level, it's now kind of like your players, and the cast and stuff like that, which is another thing. And that's where, as a producer, you don't get to do it as much. You don't, because you're more kind of on the tech side of things. You have to talk to your DM, because you were the, if we were giving kind of names, you were the executive producer. You and Wes were the executive producers on Homebrew Quest. So it was kind of like, what do you guys feel comfortable with right now on the table? And it was seemingly like kind of like just stability would be good. Let's see how the energy changes for the kind of content and stuff, because that's what you're really kind of there for. You want to put out contents and stuff. And you're right, yeah, our cameras were not good quality, kind of thing. And there's a whole different aspect of camera quality when you're doing it for people at home, because you don't know what their setup is and everything like that. Like, the dream is to have enough money to just send everybody a laptop with a mic and a webcam, kind of thing. But you just can't do that.
No.
But yeah, it's consistently rolling with the punches, adapting and stuff like that is important.
Yeah, I think it's a lovely, like, we purposely didn't get into like nitty gritty tech. Let's share some screens and show you how to set up a stream. There's plenty of videos out there, and like shorter videos too. Like, here's that information in 5 minutes, not 15 or 20. But we did want to talk about our experiences and just share kind of like anecdotes when we were doing Homebrew Quest, as you've done, like Hear Us Out, to, I suppose ultimately the aim was to give people not just advice, but like motivation to try stuff, to kind of move fast and break things, and not to be fearful of getting it wrong, because I don't know, there's something very nice about things being perfect, but perfect is safe, and perfect never gets done, and nothing can ever be perfect, and it's the enemy of doing. And it's funny, it reminds me of 2 pieces of information that have kind of been floating around in my brain recently for multiple work reasons. But like, I'm now at a level in my job where I'm like, oh, I'm now looked to as the expert on something, and like, I still think I'm the beginner at it. And my older brother, when I first got hired as a copywriter, and I had no copywriting experience, I'd never written an advertisement in my life. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he sat me down, he's like, Ben, they hired you for a reason. As long as you never lose the you in there, as long as you don't try like start being someone else or start doing like that aspect of the job or emulating someone, like keep your interests, keep your style, keep everything that was you, keep that, and the craft will get better. You'll become more polished. So when it comes to streaming, I guess it's like, what makes you fun to watch? What makes you interesting? What makes you like, why am I tuning into you? And think about your favorite streams that you watch. Why do you tune into those people? And there is your first kind of beginner lesson. You're already more experienced because no one has more experience being you in the world.
Yeah, like that's a really good. Yeah, it's really good. Don't forget that the uniqueness, the brands that you're bringing to a lot of this stuff is you, kind of thing. So that's really important. You're the only you that you are, and then yeah, just jumping in, kind of thing. Everything else comes after. Just get enough to get enough to kind of get on like streaming, and then everything else can be learned and refined and stuff like that. But once you break, it's like a big wall kind of there, that I always see the first time I ever jumped online, kind of thing. Because yeah, I know that I'm not, I'm very shy in certain aspects. So like, all I could see is like, I don't want to jump online, I don't want to stream because it's just a wall, and I don't want to see what's beyond the wall, and I don't want it because I'm scared and stuff like that. And it's so hard to push against this wall and stuff like that, that you just have to make the door and just go through it, because of things. Because like in movies with monsters that you don't see, they're a lot more scarier because you don't see them, until you do, and then you can kind of realize it. So that's the biggest thing. You're also the biggest critic that you're ever going to have. When you said like, don't be arrogant, when I was saying don't apologize because like you don't want to give away the fact that like something horribly went wrong, or anything like that. But you are always going to be your biggest critic. Like I'll probably watch this stream over and over again and just be like, I could have done that better, could have done this better, kind of thing. But don't let that cripple you. Use that energy of kind of going like, oh, I'm cringe and stuff like that, I could have done things better. Use that energy to get better, kind of thing. Don't like, hold yourself back. You're always going to be the worst critic and worst, like when you were saying your family, when you're learning English, like you're learning different accents and stuff, and your family is there, like I always find that although my family is an outside source and stuff like that, that's very hard to deal with in the sense of kind of they're like, not my family, but criticism from a third party is difficult. I always find that my criticism is way worse than anything. It holds me back, it restrains myself so much, kind of thing. So that's the biggest hurdle is getting kind of using, instead of restricting yourself, using that criticism that you have yourself to get better, kind of thing.
It makes me think of something, and I'm guilty of not doing this, and I think I should more. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And I know what I'm about to say is like might feel super cringy and might feel even scarier than like going live. But I think I might start doing this a lot more. But if you have people you trust, it's like the message you need to write is, and like, and I've probably said this in person. I've definitely said it to Paul, where it's like, hey man, can you do me a favor? Could you watch this and let me know what you think and where you think I mucked up or where you think I could be better? Because with that idea that I'm always going to be my biggest critic, if the barrier for you is watching yourself back to find moments of improvement, ask a friend to watch it for you. And I know it feels like, oh my God, like I'll just put it out there and people will watch because it's good. When I tell you some of the biggest comedians in Ireland at the moment started by messaging all of their friends and said, can you watch this video, please? To get the numbers up. It wasn't like, can you laugh at this? Can you engage with this? It's like, can you watch this? And it starts with just asking friends and family and anyone who you can trust, go, I wouldn't mind getting feedback on this. Could you give it a watch? And if you, and this is an open offer from myself personally, if you don't have someone in your life that you feel comfortable enough asking to watch a stream of yours, whether it's live or on a VOD or reviewing something or like checking something out, but you do feel like you'd be comfortable enough asking me, DM me. I'll watch it for you. I will be a viewer, and I'll give you honest and fair feedback, and feedback that's constructive. Things I know you can. I won't be like, well, a camera would be better. Things I think that could be changed. It's that old advice of, should you point out that someone has food in their teeth? If they can fix it in 15 seconds, point it out. If they can't fix it in 15 seconds, don't. So if that is a helpful tool or support for you as a viewer of this show, please message me. I'd be more than happy to. It's that circle of trust that we're building in such a supportive community that we have here in front of us. I'm conscious we are over time, but that's also this show. It happens all the time. So I don't know if there's any kind of closing remarks we want to chat about, and then we'll get into saying goodbye to you, Paul, and all the usual kind of stuff.
I like to echo what you said. Is if you everyone kind of wants from a technical standpoint, kind of like a look at your stream or something like that, like, I'm happy to jump in and kind of watch your stuff and kind of suggest things. But yeah, like the biggest thing is, like, if you ever do that with people, and their first constructive is like, get a better mic and stuff like that, it's not helpful. It's that's just a budgetary thing, kind of thing. You need to be able to learn how to kind of stretch with the tech you have, because like we've been through so many different iterations, kind of things. I've been through so many different microphones and stuff like that until I was able to afford this thing. But yeah, no, I definitely echo that. I guess my closing thing is that there's such, in both ways, in both things that we talked about, the writer's room and also the kind of stream producing thing, there's such big communities out there to kind of stress test everything that you're kind of doing, from writing to streaming and stuff like that. That reaching out is a huge big thing. And important, because like once you delve into the communities of these two aspects of kind of onlineness, you'll find so many friendly people that kind of go that they want to help you and stuff. Like it's one of the biggest regrets I have with starting streaming is never jumping into the community as much as I have now, kind of thing, because like I was just struggling learning stuff because I was learning it on my own, and kind of there's little nuances and stuff like that someone's been through and stuff. As you said, tech kind of is the greatest leveler on these things, but there's always someone who's gone through something similar that they can always suggest something. So reach out to the communities and stuff and get suggestions and help and stuff. Don't be afraid. A lot of them are very friendly. Like I love answering. The biggest reason I'm saying, if you want, DM me and I'll definitely watch your stream and give suggestions for anything that you can improve in, is because I love doing it. It's something that I love doing, I don't. There's an aspect there that I know people are afraid of, is that they don't want someone else to come in and take over. I don't want to do that. I just want you to do better. Kind of thing. I love seeing streams that just kind of evolve. Everybody in the Irish community who's decided to kind of start streaming kind of tabletop RPGs, like the evolutions of them are just so good. So nice to see that it's just like, oh yeah, like 4 weeks ago you guys were having this problem and now you've come to completely solve that. It's so fantastic to see. I love the evolution of people's streams, kind of thing, when they figure out a problem and you can see the joy in their eyes, where they're just like, we're getting to that part where, like, I'm going to now change screens and stuff like that. So yeah. No, I think that's a lovely sentiment to sort of end us up on. And I kind of hope that there's someone out there who's just kind of like has this face. You guys, like, I'm sorry guys, like I'll go to someone I like. Case in point, talking about tech stuff. I'm not using my usual camera. I'm not using my usual mic. I don't have the internet in my house right now. Did it stop us streaming? Sure as hell didn't. I'm using my phone, which is strapped, duct taped in front of a monitor. And to be honest, the camera quality maybe never been better. This could be the way forward. I could have accidentally found that the way for me to stream from now on is plugging my phone in and not using my little Logitech screen cam or whatever. It's definitely a more stable connection because I'm using mobile data, not the internet. We can up and down. So all that to say is, like, I'm not an expert at this. No one's claiming to be. And if you're out there going like, well, that's rich of these guys who know nothing to offer to ask advice, fantastic for you. You already have the confidence you need. Go off and stream. You don't need us. Like, the offer wasn't for you then, and that's fine. But if
if it can be at all helpful or if it can be at all a valuable thing. And it mightn't be an ongoing, it might be like, we're also people, we might be like, I have time to watch one, but one's better than none. So that's the nice thing there. I think before we go, we haven't properly. Oh yeah. Sorry.
It's also advice. You don't need to take it. It can also jog your memory and make you do other stuff. That's the great thing about it. So.
True. Yes. Yeah. You don't have to listen to anything we've said. That's the rule 0. We haven't properly, as much as we've touched upon it, plugged Hear Us Out. Like, it's one of the reasons that it was so fascinating to have this talk with you, because I know of all your experience, both in a TTRPG sense, but also just as a general streaming and creating content sense. But if you are looking for a fantastic entertainment commentary show, it is on every Thursday over on YouTube. You just need to search Hear Us Out. There is a back catalog of amazing content there that you can watch and kind of follow along with, both from things like, you might dip into sort of relevant news, like a new movie coming out, and you're like, oh, I wonder what the guys thought about that. But then there's also like kind of evergreen content just about the industry that is lovely to dip into. So please do head over to YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's a simple tabby away. You'll find it in the description below. The link is there. Please subscribe to Hear Us Out as well, and give a couple of videos a watch, because it all really helps in general, but also you will learn something. I guarantee it. You will enjoy yourself, and don't come knocking down my door when you're like, Ben, I watched one video and now I'm 50 videos deep. What have you done? I need to go pick my kids up from school. That's on you.
That's very kind. Yeah, no, you can also see the evolution of us as well. That's one of the big nice things of our first video to our last video is miles different. But yeah, no, I love to. We do live every Thursday. We love having people in the chat. We love mixing ideas and stuff at the entertainment industry. So yeah, join us.
And you will, in slightly teasery, the Ultimate Edging Homebrew Quest news, you will see both myself and Paul back at the table playing games. I've mentioned this before on another D8 stream. We are taking our time to make sure our setup is good and ready to go. We have found a location to do it on a almost permanent basis, essentially. So a little bit longer than the initial kind of like, and we'll be back in a couple of months, folks. But we promise you that there is new content coming from Homebrew Quest, and that it's going to be a hell of an exploration. I think our attitude as we move into sort of campaign 2, campaign 3, story 2, story 3 is try stuff and see what sticks. So we're really going into like an experimental stage, which we're looking forward to, which means that there's plenty more opportunity as well to bring in more of the community that we've gotten to know over the last couple of years in to be a part of it, which we're personally super excited about. Cut to me in 5 years' time, and that still isn't out, but like we are working on it. Like, so thanks for bearing with us and for continuing to support us. We're genuinely blown away that we're still considered part of like the active community, which is always great, given that the biggest part of what we do has been taking a little, like a dragon hibernating under a mountain, taking a little snooze, but it's only going to come back rip-roaringly fantastic, and that is a Ben Clifford guarantee. So which is worth nothing. It exchanges for nothing at the local bank. I'm almost certain that's the end of our show. I don't think there's anything else to dip into. Paul, thank you so much for being my co-host today. It's been genuinely fascinating. I always love talking to you. And everyone watching live, thank you so much for taking part and asking questions. Anyone watching on VODs, please do leave comments. Just because we're not here live with you doesn't mean we won't in the future reply to your comments and kind of keep that discussion going. It leaves us with only one, I suppose I forget we're pretending to be a news show, so maybe one story.
Well, thank you very much for having me as the co-host. It's been really, really fun. It's been great to watch and also now be on. Thank you very much.
Yes, it won't be the last time, Paul. I can gosh darn guarantee that, because we've more to talk about and more to uncover. I don't know, because we're obviously on, we're sort of like in a free gaff. Like the two of us are on the D8 channel. So we snuck in the back door and we've been using the house. True fact about myself and Paul. Sometimes when a friend of ours was on holiday with their family, we were in their house. They never knew. They left their back door open.
It happened to me when I was at college, and I heard our friend had snuck into my house, and I was just like, "How are you eating a sandwich?" Oh, that's my kitchen. Yeah.
It was a classic prank. We used to play on each other, just being in each other's houses. So this feels apt for the two of us. It's not behavior we've ever grown out of. But the reason I asked all of that preamble is, are you able to raid anyone, or is that are we set up to do that? If we're not, that's totally cool. We can end the show as normal, and we might just do what I coined on Monday, an organic raid, where I just pick a channel that we all promise, we all pinky swear we'll jump over to.
I can set up a raid. I think I'm good. To, I don't know. I'm hoping that I hope I'm not raiding someone. But we'll find out.
Yeah. I can kind of see who's live. TNT Nerds is live at Helldivers, and Horde of Tales is live with some tabletop if we want to go watch some stuff. Horde of Tales, yeah. Horde of Tales is a good channel to go jump over into. If you have them, I can spell it out for you if you want as well.
I can get their name now. So.
Oh yes, yeah. I should have just dipped into Discord. It's right here. But they're playing Thirsty Sword Lesbians with Lip Kennedy, Ada, Sam Size, Sequoia, Anya, and sponsored by Evil Hat Productions. So that's who we're going to go over. While Paul is setting that up, I'll end us with a little story, a final news story for tonight, if I can just find it on my little prompting cards here. Always the professional. Right, Paul, I'll buy you some time. Don't worry about it. Let's see what stories we got here. Oh, here's one. In local sports news, a new craze has swept the world of propulsion-based performance. They're calling it Wizard Frisbee. And no, it's not a new way to use Tensor's floating disk. Seemingly, Bernie barbarians will find the squishiest of wizards, flatten them down, and see who can toss them the furthest. Bonus points if you can get the wizard to cast Fly or Feather Fall for extra distance. Well, ain't that just some wholesome family fun? Come on, Junior, let's go play catch. Well, that's all from us in the studio this week. A huge thank you to Paul for joining us. We'll be back in 1 month's time. There won't be a show in 2 weeks' time, but we'll be back here, same crit time, same crit channel. I've been Ben, he's been Paul, and we've been on a roll.
I'm gonna do the raid.
That worked? Did that buy you time?
That's good. Yeah, I can do the raid now. So.
Oh, gosh damn it. Yeah, fair enough. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you over on this raid, and catch you all soon.
Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.